Bonjour mes amis, hi guys. 2020 is off to a big start. Many brands releasing new models. They are pretty much free from the shackles of Baselworld, and SIHH has become Watches and Wonders and will be later in the year. So that's great. We're going to see more releases earlier in the year. So let's talk a bit about Omega, Moser, Seiko, and what's going on with Rolex. And firstly, Omega are playing a bit of a game of give and take. They give you something, but they take something back, and the price is pretty hefty. So the Caliber 321, I'm sure you're sick and tired of hearing about it by now. Many videos about this thing. So they brought it back last year in the platinum version, and finally we get the steel. But it's not a moon watch. It is a pre-moon watch. So smaller 40mm case, more simple lines, different bracelet. Different relationship between the elements on the dial as well. It's dubbed the Ed White, which was one of the astronauts. And so the Caliber 321 was a collaboration in the early 40s between Omega and Lemania to create a column wheel manual wind chronograph. And it's been used by Breguet, Patek, Roger Dubuis, and to this day, Vacheron, you saw in my earlier video about the chronograph Corne de Vache, how they finish it. They all finish it to different standards. So they get the ébauche and then they change some elements and finish it. But you always recognize the movement by the wishbone shape bridge there in the middle. So Omega's way of finishing it is quite nice, probably mostly machined. They use Sedna gold for that copper color to replace the actual copper they used to use. And the price will be around, I think, 14,000 US, which is hefty. I mean, you pay for the exclusivity, the price, some of the nicer finishing, you have display case back. I wouldn't rush into it, but if you have a smaller wrist, it's something to consider maybe in a year or two on the second-hand market. It's not limited, and it's not replacing the Moon watch either. I actually prefer the way the Moon watch wears on my 17cm wrist, but it's up to you to decide. I was actually shopping yesterday in second-hand shops, and I tried on the 47101 reference from Vacheron, which was a reissue of an old model, very classic model they had. Beautiful watch in person, and it does look like you have a vintage watch. And I wound it a little bit while I was looking at the movement, and it started right away, but only worked for a few seconds, and then it stopped, and I wanted a bit more, and then it stopped again. So it was a bit awkward there in the shop. So it's a bit of a word of warning there before you buy second-hand watches. You know, everybody talks about second-hand. Even my mom heard about the second-hand thing. It's going crazy. They're beautiful, and those second-hand shops, you know, they're gonna buy them in maybe mint condition without the papers and the box in this case, and give you 6 months of warranty, hoping you never bring it back, hoping you're a tourist that's gonna go away, and that the problem is off their hands. And there you go, it broke right in front of me in the shop. And their watchmaker, if I had bought it and brought it back the next day, the watchmaker will probably try to patch it up best he can, but I wouldn't bet that it would run perfectly. And they just hope that you're not going to come back twice and that they won't have to take apart the whole movement. So there you go, a word of caution about these exquisite movements from those Holy Trinity brands. You know, they're still very fragile. I'm guessing the Omega version is a lot more solid. It's a lot more up to the standards of a Rolex, let's say. The other release by Omega is the Seamaster Bond, the non-limited version. I really recommend you to stay away from the limited version, which has that goofy dial that just never sticks in the second-hand market prices, and it's very novelty. And this one here too is very novelty, and I wonder how we're gonna feel about it in a year. The first reaction from everybody is quite positive. It's a nice colors, nice ensemble, beautiful mesh bracelet. I'm sure from Omega is gonna be great quality. And you have a lot of Fortina, but it kind of works. It's a cool watch, no display case back, so it's more of a rough look. It's not ceramic bezel, so it might fade a bit more over time. And the only concession to the movie is, well, in a way, is that insignia at the bottom of the dial from the British military, which I'm sure no spy in the world would want to have, because it's really announcing, hey, I'm working for the Queen right here. It's a bit silly. So that for me is cool, and also it's a no-go for me on this watch. But again, it's made of titanium, it's going to be very light. So don't rush into it. I would wait for the price to come off, because it's 9 grand and you lose a lot of the tech that made the new Seamaster great. And that new Seamaster trades for what, 5 grand? So yeah, hold your horses a bit, I would say. Then off to H. Moser et Compagnie. I don't know why everybody says NC, it's compagnie. Anyway, H. Moser releasing their own integrated steel bracelet chronograph, which is that is cool, but it's not a chronograph they made themselves, because it would cost too much to develop. So they got it from another independent. It's a flyback chronograph. It looks good because you can see the whole movement, because everything is centered. So they're using this unique display. So you have the seconds, like regular running seconds, and the minutes is also on the center axe, which allows them to have that 60-minute register, but most importantly to hide the rotor, because it's an automatic movement right behind the dial. The look is very 70s, cushion case. It's cool to have the pushers on both sides, on the right and the left. It's cool to have the flyback, and it's 40 grand. So it's really for the guy who has more money than sense and who's tired of the beautiful Patek, really. The bracelet, it's all one link, so it's quite interesting. It's a bit like a snake, or reminds me a bit of the engine cover of some of the Lamborghinis. Now on to Seiko. I was in Thailand for weekend there with my family during the holidays, and at the airport I saw the whole lineup of the replacement to the SKX. It's not real divers, but they look quite cool. Not bad. Maybe I'll pick one up to as a gift for a nephew or something. Then they had the new version of the green Sumo. The only one was only there for a year or two. I'm not as fond. It's more bland. They've lost a little touch of yellow. Doesn't really appeal to me. They didn't have the new Alpinist, so I'm still looking forward to see it. It's not yet here in Hong Kong either. And in Hong Kong, I tried on the new blue Marine Master. I like the color, quite sober. I recommend you to watch the full review by Bruce Williams, because I wouldn't do it justice. And then I tried on the limited edition of that manual wind Grand Seiko. And it was a bit thicker than I had imagined, which is always the case with Grand Seiko. And I'm a bit worried, those are beautiful objects, but those peacock dials, I don't know if I want to have that on my wrist. In the end, I like something a bit more classic, a bit more under the radar. You look a bit like Liberace with these watches on your wrist, but it's a good looking watch. And now let's talk Rolex, I suppose. Rolex. They've increased the prices even on the Datejusts. The people here at the shop didn't really understand why they would have to make the watches that they can't sell even more expensive. But you know the message from Rolex. They want to sell precious metals, and if you're after the hot steel sports, well, you pretty much have to buy those precious metals to have a chance to be on the list. So the message is clear. It's not for the common man. Even if you have saved up to celebrate a milestone in your life or in your kid's life, for example, they don't really want to sell you the watches. So, well, deal with it, get an Omega. That's just how it is. So the Daytonas in many markets are gonna cost like $1,000 more. So they're shifting back some of the profit margin from the second-hand dealers back to them, which is, I guess, fair enough. But someday the backlash will come, I suppose. I wanted to pick up a Datejust, but now this price is ridiculous. So maybe in Europe, and when I travel and when I can get the taxes back. So yeah, speaking of Rolex, there's been so many speculations, so many YouTube videos. It's really an overload of Instagram and YouTube. Some friends of mine are a bit tired of it. They want to reduce the collection, refocus on what's important. You know, what's important is enjoying what's on the wrist. And if you can't get the Rolex, what I would recommend you to try to find some special pieces with a great undervalued movement, something that nobody else has. Because honestly, even if I got a Hulk or a Daytona, I would kind of feel like it's too obvious, especially here in Hong Kong, obviously. It would be downright dangerous if you're in London. People get cut for their watches. And it's not the same pleasure when everyone and their mother just walks into the ADs asking for a GMT Master 2, not even knowing what it is, and having never cared for Rolex. It's a bizarre situation, because now the middle class, you know, they want to diversify their portfolio, and a 6 to 10 grand sports model is right in the sweet spot. That's why Rolex is so hot. There's not many investments in this low interest world that we live in that are going to give you something that you can enjoy every day, look at, and has a good potential of increasing, of gaining value at a nice, better rate than any bank would give you without much risk. So I don't think Rolex was really anticipating that sort of exactly that type of demand that has nothing to do with watch enthusiasm. So it's fair on their part as well to sort of protect the brand a bit. So anyway, doesn't matter the price at the AD, you're not going to see the watches, because it's a new paradigm. You know, that's the mentality now of all the ADs. They have a hot item. Every day they have thousands of people bothering them. They can't get the commission because they can't get the watches in. It's amazing that an AD in the center of Hong Kong, watch capital of Asia, and possibly the world, can't get more than 2 Still Sea Dwellers a year, or 2 Pepsis. It's just ridiculous. The AD told me that he's not expecting to see more watches until the end of January, which is Chinese New Year. So we'll see. I'm expecting a lot more trouble on the streets during those New Year, because the agitators are going to try to ruin it for everybody, like they did for Christmas and New Year, where they would smash shops inside malls, you know, where kids are going and all that. So I'm thinking a lot of mainland Chinese people are not going to travel. So maybe I'll hit the shops during those days and see if they have a bit more stock. Because I would love to round up my collection. The green sub, the Hulk, although it's at the end is a novelty watch, that would be nice to have, because it's the one that's most likely to go out of production and jump in price. That would be great to get it from an AD, even with the new prices. I really love to get a GMT Master 2. I think that's the perfect watch. It does everything, great look, cool bracelet. I would love to have a Jubilee if I don't get a Datejust on a Jubilee. And then of course Daytona, that's the unicorn. Honestly, I'm not too hung up about the Daytona. I love my Moon watch, and I think I still love it over the Daytona. But it's a great watch to experience. That's mostly it. Doesn't mean you have to keep it forever. It's a great watch to experience. So we'll see what goes on. I wish you a great year. I think I spoke about everything that's been going on so far early in the year. Looking forward to the new releases and the prediction videos. It's a bit of an overload of speculations, you know, like the Rolex bubble video. Oh my God, that was also ridiculous. And I would recommend you to be selective in how many watch channels you are watching. But there's some good stuff coming out. And most interestingly, I think the watches.tv is really interesting, because they're there on the ground and they get the exclusive, and they're really about watchmaking, which is the most interesting thing. Beyond all the negativity, there's also a great community that we have built and around this hobby. And let's keep it going for 2020, and I hope you get that very special watch that you want. Bye bye.